Hey everyone, we're going to take a quick minute to talk about our sponsors who we love, and we are only partnered up with companies that we truly believe in, one of which is Primal Kitchen. Primalkitchen.com, soy-free, grain-free, canola oil-free, lots of healthy condiments and dressings. And these are the things that really make food good, right? It's the oils, the dressings, the toppings, but most of them in the store are filled with horribly offensive ingredients and toxic oils. So go to primalkitchen.com. Everything from incredible mayo, dressings and marinades, protein bars, collagen, drink mixes, and etc. And use Kick-Ass Life for 10% off as your code.
Hey everyone, want to tell you about our sponsor, Rep Provisions. Rep Provisions is a regenerative agriculture company that provides meat that is grass-fed, pasture-raised, and actually raised in a regenerative agriculture approach, which means that they're actually moving the cattle along, just like predators would have in the past, to help them manure and grow the grasslands and then allow that time to grow back again before they move the cattle back, which is really cool, you guys, because this is what's happening to the planet. This is why cattle raising is getting such a bad name, is because they're not raising them the way that Rep is, right? So when they do that, it allows us to actually save the planet. So when you support companies like Rep Provisions that are doing regenerative agriculture, you're actually helping support the future of the planet. It's really important. And so not only is it really cool to do stuff like that, but their meat tastes far superior to any beef I have ever had. And they're giving you guys 10% off if you use coupon code KICKASSLIFE. So head over to repprovisions.com and enter KICKASSLIFE at checkout for 10% off.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Kick-Ass Life podcast. We're going to talk about the subconscious mind today and the power of reprogramming that. But first, what's going on in your world, Tara? What's happening in Utah? I know you got some exciting things coming up. What's been lighting you up lately?
Man, you know what? I have just in the last couple of years picked up the biggest obsession with hiking, and there's a hike here in Utah called Mount Timpanogos, and it's generally one people will do, like they'll start at nighttime and hit the peak at sunrise. We're gonna do it at 5 a.m., but it's been a bucket list thing for me for a while, and my sister's flying out from Minnesota. We got a group going, so I'm hiking Mount Timpanogos this week. I'm super pumped about that. And then this weekend I've got FitCon. They are doing a fitness conference here in Utah. We're doing it outdoors. They're trying to make it, the most appropriate with COVID and stuff. But I get to go around and interview a bunch of the fitness celebrities and things like that with the camera crew. So I'm pretty pumped about that. It's going to be fun. Like, I'm a super duper extrovert. Like, it lights me up to level 10 billion meeting new people. So I will be like on cloud nine this weekend. What about you? What you got coming?
What's funny you said that about hiking, and I guess I'm going to give a shout out to Vivo Barefoot, because you introduced me to their shoes, and I've been hiking a ton during the pandemic, and I've discovered new ones. And, again, talking about, like, on the episode where we spoke about comfort zones and switching it up, there's a trailhead, and it splits off into two. And for years, I've never gone the one way. Like, never did that. Sometimes you're like, no, this is... And so the other day, it was kind of chilly by the beach. We've been having a heat wave, and that's where the hike is. And I said to my friend, I go, you know what? Let's do this. Like, it's kind of overcast right now. Let's go take this trail. And it lit us up so much. It was like, oh my God, new discovery. We discovered all sorts of new offshoots. So yeah, I am so into hiking. And listen, I know for people out there, if it's like something that seems to you, just try it at some point. I'm taking a walk in the woods, man. This is what everybody needs right now.
Totally. It's we're going to talk about reprogramming the subconscious, and going out there like that. You're getting a ton of oxygen in your brain. You're putting yourself in a new environment. You're allowing new neural pathways to be created. You're allowing it. Every time we put ourselves into a new experience, we're allowing ourselves to make new connections. But if we're just going around being like, okay, at 5 o'clock I go to the gym, and then I go to work, and then I come home and I make one of 6 meals that I always make, and then I do the same stuff. It's really, really difficult to get out of it. So I agree. Like, getting out in nature, you get tapped into your child self. You become curious, you become fascinated. You're like, especially like even hiking by yourself. I know you do that a lot, right?
Well, here's the thing. I used to, but now I bring a hiking stick with me if I do. The only reason, one of the reasons that I don't
You don't
hike...
want me advertising that on...
Well, here's the thing. One of the reasons I don't hike alone so much now is I had a mountain lion at my front door at 4 a.m. that slammed into my front door a couple of years ago. And, after that experience, it's a little bit like, so I'll hike with the dog or I'll hike with friends. I'll do road hikes and stuff. stuff because I'm still in the mountains, but I always bring a hiking stick with me in case I have to fend something off. Unfortunately, that's just like the real deal of where I live, but I do.
Yeah, here too.
And so, but if you, I love hiking by myself, or in general, a friend and I will reach a plateau and we'll just sit there silently away from each other and just have a moment there by ourselves, even though we're with each other. Yeah.
Totally. I do that too with friends. And it's like, there's something about, even if you were to walk around your neighborhood by yourself.
Yes.
And just like, don't listen to a podcast. Don't listen to a book. Don't have music. Have nothing. And just walk around. Like, I think that we have this aversion to feeling bored, right? We want to feel constantly stimulated because it's fun and exciting and engaging. But I found like just even walking around my neighborhood in silence and noticing a dog or noticing like a fence that's messed up or just noticing some flowers. Like there's something incredibly stress relieving and also creative that comes out in me when I put myself in that state. So
or driving to another neighborhood too to take a walk, even if it's a neighborhood you want to live in, or let's say you live in the city and you're like, it's just too congested. Hey, drive to the suburbs, drive somewhere, a park, and just take a walk around. Again, like that is it's so great. And I also am excited, and I know you are too, just some of our clients, reaching really great levels of either health or in certain experiences lately, confidence. It's just so nice to see people wanting to reach out, knowing they have a passion, knowing they have some type of thing they want to do and they haven't, and they want the guidance and the help and the encouragement from someone outside of their tribe. And so just, watching a lot of people light up lately is just so great. There's one client I had who came to me and she thought that she had a thyroid problem. And she didn't. I was very suspect that she didn't have one. And I was like, I don't think this is it. I think it might be something else. Send her to actually Dr. Forsman on that one because she's in California. And just like, I love getting the texts and the calls like, my headaches are gone. I'm sleeping through the night. And so to everyone out there who's struggling with health stuff, I'm telling you, man, you've seen people. This one woman worked with a holistic doctor for 10 years. Nothing happened. You know what I mean? So you just got to keep trying, keep reaching out, keep branching out, because these success stories are coming in nonstop for us. I know you have a couple of good ones too.
Yeah, in my coaching system, Hire Women Who Rise, we do more than just health coaching. We do relationships and business, and also like our spiritual connection. And one of my clients shared this morning, I don't think she would mind because she shared it with the group, and it's anonymous, but one of the things that I encourage them to do is to make a connection each day with your spouse or business partner or somebody that's like a partner in your life, and also someone that you mentor. So that could be your children. I even have some people, it's with their dog, it could be with someone that you just influence at work and you kind of know that and you're a mentor to them, but reaching out each day with intention to show like, I care about you. I'm interested in you. I'm thinking about you, because I think so often we have this in our head that, yeah, of course people know that we care. No, they don't. Not that much, but it's such a small, tiny thing. One thing I do with my kids is I have a whiteboard and I just leave a note for them each morning. Like, I love how you came and gave me a hug when you woke up yesterday. Or I love how hard you made me laugh when you told that story about X thing, and just having that little bit of intention, it goes such a long way. And one of my clients shared this morning that just her whole relationship with her son was completely transformed by doing that, just having these notes. And he wrote her this note back, and it was just super heartwarming. And they had been through a lot of trauma in the last year, some just extrinsic things happening in their world. And it was just, to me, it's so beautiful what can happen in our lives when we just put a little bit of intention, like a little bit of planning and organizing of like showing up, because right now, especially, I feel like it's easy to feel completely overwhelmed and like you're chronically failing. I feel like that's a very common feeling right now is, I want to do this. I want to be better at this. I want to be this, and I'm failing at all of it. That was kind of the theme of my coaching call with my clients this morning. And it's like, the way I like to look at it is, when you had the science teacher that showed you, like, if you had like 5 tennis balls and you had to get them all in a pickle jar, and then you had a bunch of sand, and if you put the sand in first, you can't get the tennis balls in, but if you put the tennis balls in first, you can get the sand in. And that's just, I think, the message that I think is so important for us right now is like, what are the tennis balls for you? Like, what are the things that you absolutely want and that jar, and what is sand? Because I think a lot of the time we get so overwhelmed because we're working on that sand all day. We're like playing on social media, or we're getting caught up in some random thing that doesn't matter to us. And then the tennis ball falls away. And then we feel like, crap, dude, I haven't even exercised or like meditated or anything that I really want to do, gone out and done some sort of active sport like hiking or whatever it is. I haven't done that in weeks, and you start feeling depressed. So that'd be my message, I think, from what I'm learning from my clients lately is like when they're putting those seemingly small actions that are actually tennis balls in their life first, everything else just starts falling in place. They just start feeling more and more empowered. So that was
and that leads right into really what we're going to be talking about, which is really the power of the subconscious mind. And I guess I'll just start off and say that the way to look at this is, and Bruce Lipton and other experts and writers on this have talked about this, but basically, so the conscious mind, which is basically like, it's the captain, right? The conscious mind is sort of like the captain of the ship. The subconscious mind, though, is the one that's like doing 98, 99% of like, that's really what's happening. So we've got this conscious mind, and we think we can like think these things, but the problem with imprinting the subconscious mind or reprogramming is people are not realizing that this and this has to be aligned, because you can't go around with
that would be if you're not watching, that's mind and heart.
There you go. Exactly. It's the heart. I mean, even the ancient Egyptians knew that. They didn't have the word for the subconscious mind, but it's the heart. So if they're in conflict, or, you say and you think you want something, but the messages you're telling yourself are that you're not worthy or whatever the situation is, then they're going to be unaligned. And so I think it's important for all of us. I'll tell a story later, but I've had to reprogram my subconscious a couple of times. In fact, even a little bit recently. Remember, I called you and we were talking, and I was like, ooh, this thing kind of reared up again. This came up. I was more in the missing of a thing that's not in my life anymore, and going down the road of that feeling versus the counter of, what it is that I want. And so any of us are, and that's when I immediately called up one of my good friends who's a coach, Cindy Lou, and I was like, hey, we got to do like a session. I gotta do some more work here. And so no one is immune to this. It's going to come up. It doesn't matter how good of a coach you are. Like, you can coach yourself, get help, etc. So let's start there with like a new mind and a new life, because the subconscious takes orders, from us. And it's based on the beliefs and the suggestions you're accepting as truth. And I'll give one that was clear that I wrote in my book. While I was confident everywhere, and while I was manifesting all these things, I still had this lingering sort of shame about my physical disability issue, where it wouldn't matter how wonderful I thought of myself in all the other areas. I still was thinking, but I'm going to be rejected. But no one wants me. Who's going to want this? Which is really that's a low self-worth thing. Right. Even though every other area of my life, like, I'm fucking worthy. I own this. I'm going to dominate. Yeah. And so, oh my God, I really had to reprogram. I had to do so many affirmations and things. When the thoughts would come up, I had to turn it around, use different language to really reprogram myself to get out of it and say, and really feel like, no, I am worthy. And on top of that, I don't care if someone doesn't think I am.
I'm curious how you transcended that, because Joe Dispenza, and I'll give Joe Dispenza tons of credit if you really want to dig into reprogramming the subconscious. Yeah. I mean, he is possibly the authority on that right now in the world. One
of my favorite authors ever. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely would recommend. I just finished his book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, and I've also read Becoming Supernatural. I have all of his guided meditations. I love them. Listening to him on YouTube. If you just want to start for free, he'll change your life on YouTube. But one thing that he talks about is that in between the subconscious and the conscious mind is our analytical mind. And if we can't transcend the analytical mind, we will just stay in our conscious and we will just repeat, right? We're trying to shape these new thoughts as saying like, hey, Elle, let me cognitively talk to you about why you won't be rejected and why, it's not a big deal that your hand is messed up. Like, not a big deal. If I'm curious how you transcended the analytical mind to get to the point that you could deep down change your core belief there. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I actually listened on loops to a lot of guided meditations and affirmations and things like that. And I honestly just had to heal that part of me that was embarrassed about it, which that embarrassment is linked to fear of vulnerability as being an alpha. Do you know what I mean? And so it really was being okay with being vulnerable that almost kind of helped that part. Does that make sense? Do you know what I mean?
So sharing that you had shame about it with someone, is that kind of where you started, or
yeah, it's kind of like the alcoholic finally has to admit that they are one, right? In order to, like, I had to admit that I had deep shame about it, and I saw it. I had to be called out by it, by friends, and by a coach. And you know what I mean? I worked on this because I knew that there was a struggle here within romantic relationships and this identity that I had and this fear and all this shame. And so I had to unwrap that. And honestly, though, that was part of it. I mean, because it was, again, it's like how people saw me and the embarrassment of that. And it wasn't until I, quote, came out of the closet with it that I finally was like, okay, I did the big vulnerable step. Like, whew, that wasn't as bad as I thought. And then I was able to kind of ease into it. Listen, there was a lot of crying, you know, there was a lot of like uncomfortability through this. A lot of the pain and the suffering that I felt through it was almost for my old self who was ashamed. That's really where all of the emotion came out, was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe for so long I was here almost feeling like it's okay, you know, former self, kind of. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I did do, first of all, I do love one of Joe Dispenza's meditations, and he's got so many meditation CDs, but I really love the one where he continues to pan the camera out with the universe. And one of the things that really helps me with reprogramming my subconscious is watching anything having to do with the cosmos. It's like any kind of show about the cosmos and how the universe works and the Milky Way. Boy, it just pans the camera out. It broadens my life, where I'm able to look at things more broadly and philosophically than I am when you're in your own little problem. And this is why I love nature. This is why I love getting out in nature, because you get a vista viewpoint. You're like, oh man, there's so much more that's awesome and bigger than me. And that's the unseen possibility part of what we're probably going to talk about here. So I hope that made sense. But I mean, honestly, it was talking it out, and it was also feeling it out, and then having some compassion for myself, and also just really being like, just doing it, pulling a Band-Aid off, really, with the vulnerability. And it started with me then being on a first date and just telling someone, you know, that was the speaking up part, or the part that I had, because, you know, my friends all know it. And then calling a few other friends and being like, hey, you were a really great friend, but I wasn't to you because I didn't share this part of me, and you've been really awesome and open, and we're not going to get closer unless I tell you this thing. And now this thing is really not a big deal. And by the way, I've had like a really bad hand flare up lately. Like, it happens. My arm, I mean, I woke up like 4 days ago, arm practically immovable, numb and weird all day. And it's not to say that I don't have moments where I'm like, oh man, you know, like, damn it, you know, a little bit of a reminder, like, that's still there because I live mostly pain-free. But, you know, when it comes up, it comes up. But when it comes up now, it's not like a whole thing. It's just like, oh, this is annoying, versus like, ah! Yeah, like the whole story of it's a shame and all, like all that stuff would come up too. And now that doesn't. Now it's more of just like, all right, you know what? Damn it. All right. But luckily for me, I can rest and I can take the time to get over it. So, but man, every time a flare-up would happen in the past, before I got over it, all of those horrible emotions would come. And here's the thing, back to the subconscious mind, right? It's like it's a replay. You know, here back in the 70s, people used to talk about like psychology, like, hey, what tapes are playing in your head? Right? Because our brain is meant to sort of like get information and then replay it. It's like a recording machine. So we've got to change that recording in that tape, you know?
Yeah, for me, I think, you know, a few things that have really helped me on that. One is we talk a lot about the work of Byron Katie. And by the way, I'm actually interviewing Catherine Dixon, who is my coach, who does the work of Byron Katie that has completely changed my self-talk and has been wildly impacting on my subconscious reprogramming. I'm interviewing her on my Inside Out Health podcast right after this, actually. So that'll be coming out in like a month or two. But one thing that I have learned from working with her is that, yes, we have these belief patterns that we're stuck in. You know, the very first question in the work is it true? And you're like, well, yeah, right? And is it like, can you absolutely 100% know without any doubt that there's no other possible explanation this thought is true? And then you're kind of like, ugh. That moment where you have to question your belief pattern. There's a teenage sci-fi book series, the Divergent series. The movies went pretty popular.
Love it.
I actually love a lot of teenage sci-fi series like that because they hit on a lot of concepts that I am fascinated by. And one of them in the Divergent series, basically, if you haven't read it or seen the movies.
Right. Spoiler alert coming up for those people.
It's not huge. It's not going to ruin the whole thing, but well, kind of. Okay. But the meaning of the word divergent is the people are all in these, like, put into these boxes basically of, you fit into like the Puritan type people, like the Amish, like you're that group, or you're the really smart people, and so people are put into these boxes. Well, the star of the show, she's divergent, which means she kind of sees through all the BS. She kind of sees what's going on, and doesn't really fit in anywhere. And there's this simulation they put them in it's like a dream state, and they see like how they react, right? They're testing them to see how they get out of it. And I love this visual. I always have this in my head for when you're kind of cracking your current belief patterns. And she finds herself, the star of the show, she finds herself in this glass enclosure that's full of water all the way to the top. And there's no way out. She's going to drown, right? She's just completely enclosed in water. And she's freaking out for a second. And then she just catches her eye on the glass, and she starts to tap it. And with the power of her own belief, she starts to crack the glass, and she just starts tapping and tapping and tapping. And pretty soon the glass all breaks and she comes rushing out. And that visual for me is what it feels like when you are questioning your current belief patterns. Like, you're like, no, this is how it is. I'm stuck in glass. I'm going to drown. And she could have stayed there. She could have chosen that. But she chose to just, what if this other possibility is true? And that's where the rewiring and the reprogramming of the subconscious mind starts for me, is when we're in this current belief pattern. Like, for me, this was Mormonism, right? I mean, I was like, I can't even, maybe 100,000 times I said the words, I know this church is true. I dedicated my life to teaching other people what I believed, right? I had a strong missionary effort. I was like very gung-ho. So that belief pattern was so deeply ingrained in me. And when I started to have this like crack in the glass, this little tap of like, what if that isn't true? That was a very uncomfortable feeling. Very, like, all of my survival instincts came out like, no, it is true. I know it is because of this, and this, and that's what happens when we're starting to question any belief pattern, whether it's our own worthiness, whether it's something somebody else said on social media that challenges us. When we are presented with something that defies our current belief pattern, we are going to feel super, super uncomfortable. So what happens next? This is all, Joe Dispenza. I'm such a geek on what he talks about.
Me too.
But is we have to start first by becoming aware of what our beliefs are.
And a great way to do that is to see where in your life are you hating it. Real quick. I'm going to just plug in my computer, but keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So the first thing is, like, for me, I found out when I started to become more aware that I was living a life that was completely directed by guilt. It was completely shaped by avoiding guilt. So I would go and help out somebody who needed help, not because I just really wanted to and that felt like a good thing to do. I was kind of tricking myself and telling myself that that's what it was. But deep down, it was because I would feel guilty if I didn't. I would feel like a bad person if I didn't do that. I was doing all sorts of fun activities with my kids because the implication, if I didn't do that, it meant I'm a bad mom and I'm not being a good, right? So what happens when you're living in that state is you start to just feel like now you're just like this robot that's constantly going out serving, but it's not really coming from a place of empowerment. It's coming from guilt avoidance. And so for me, that was one of the first things that I realized.
That's really great. I just want to highlight that. That doing good in the world for you at those moments was not really coming from a true place of love. It was mostly, like you said, the guilt avoidance.
Right.
That's really strong right there. Yeah.
I didn't have that awareness at the time, if people would have been like, you're just living your life out of guilt, avoiding guilt, I would have been like, excuse you. Like, no, I'm not. I did not have that awareness. And that's the beautiful thing about awareness is that we don't have it generally. Like right now, all of us, me and you included, for sure, all of us have all these things that are going on in our subconscious that we're not even aware of. And it's usually not it's never until we either put ourselves or the universe puts us in a position in which we are able to see that from an outside perspective. And this is where I'd love to, dive in a little bit into like, okay, so where do we go? Like, how do we put ourselves in that situation where we can become aware of what's going on in our subconscious mind? And I think, I mean, the slam dunk numero uno thing that we can do is meditation. Because when we go into that meditative place, now we are becoming the observer of our thoughts. And people ask me all the time, you know, meditation is part of my coaching program and I talk about it a lot and I'll share it on social media and people say like, I don't really know how to meditate. Like, I don't understand, like, what is it? Like, what are you doing? And there's one thing I'd really like to point out about meditation, and that it's very different. If you grew up religious, you were probably taught to ponder. I was taught to ponder, right? To like read scriptures or pray and think actively think about the things on a deeper level. That to me is the opposite of meditation. To me, meditation is to release the mind and to welcome new thoughts in. You know, they come in and I'm just observing what's happening. I'm like, that's really interesting. That thought keeps coming up. Seems like every time I sit down to meditate, I go into that thought. Wow, that must be really, really like showing up in my subconscious all the time. And so when that thought comes up, I'm like, okay, noted. And I release it. And another one comes up. Interesting. Release it. And that's how we start to become the observers of our subconscious. I really think it's quite difficult to have any idea what's going on in your subconscious mind if you don't regularly meditate. I don't see how else you're going to be that aware because it's subconscious. So it's an opportunity for our subconscious to speak to our conscious so we can have that awareness. And then we can start to change, right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, and there's all sorts of different types of meditations. For me, I like guided meditations. I love the Byron Katie one, which is what she does is you're silent, and then you'll notice in your head thoughts coming up, and she'll just come on in and go, all right, what thought was that? Recognize it. Thank you for spending its life with you. And now it's gone.
Beautiful.
And so she keeps bringing you back. And, you know, sometimes you might fall asleep on that one. Then there's Joe Dispenza's. Like there's free guided YouTube meditations. There's guided meditations about money or health or whatever. I love a guidance meditation I've used for years. Not anymore, but if I have a health issue, which is rare, but when I did, is National Institute for Health, Candace Pert. She's an amazing researcher and PhD. And she did psychosomatic wellness. It's a little like a $4 audiobook, but like the second meditation is a 20-minute taking you through and putting light in the body. It was like my savior when I had the reverse T3 problem, and I knew that I needed to, and that was one of the things I used then, because when my first bout of hypothyroidism, I didn't know about this stuff. And then years later, when I had the second bout, I was like, okay, I know that my mind is going to help this thing go faster, help the correction of this, and help my answers come. And so I used that meditation. And then also what I did is, and you know, we're jumping around here on what people can do, but in terms of end result visualization, I visualized all the things that I would be doing when I wasn't sick and jacked up. Those were a lot of my daydreams. It was me feeling the feelings of so happy, and I'll tell you what happened. So during the time that I was healing and still sick and was still searching and trying to figure out what the hell was going on and trying to dose myself, during the first bout, I had watched Riding Giants, which is a Laird Hamilton documentary, and it's an amazing documentary on big wave surfing. It's beautiful. It's really cool, and it's literally one of the best films ever. Even if no one is interested in surfing, this is like an amazing film. And I watched it over and over again, and I would just like watch it and I dream about like, oh, I want to be on the beach and I want to be a surfer girl and all this stuff. And you'd think I've lived in California all these years. I still wasn't one. And then I visualized myself there. I just dreamed about it. I was sick inside, crying all the time, fat and bloated, man. I was just hating it. But this was like my getaway, this movie. And it was just like this, oh, I want to be out there. Okay, so then cut to, I do get better. One of the first things I do is go for a surf lesson. Stand up my first time, super excited. Wasn't totally shocked on that. I'm an athlete. But I realized that the motion of paddling, being laid down on a board with my arms, did not work with my neck and my issues. And I remember being like, damn, man, I wanted to be that surfer girl. I wanted to be a surfer girl. And now my arms don't work with it. And then not too long after, I went to Hawaii and saw people stand up paddling. And I was like, there is my answer. And I ended up getting aboard. I came back and I did actually totally become that surfer girl. I started to meet all the locals at the local Malibu beach and knew everyone. I was taking everyone out to go paddling. Awesome. And I literally had this moment on the beach where I started bawling, crying, because I was like, I am living exactly what I imagined, and when I was sick and hating it. But I held on to that because I knew that pretending and daydreaming and those kind of end result visualizations work. But what I will say is that people have said in this arena that examples of just saying well, I want to have a great life or I want to be wealthy. those visions can't be quantified because they're too general. You know what I mean? So it becomes very difficult for the subconscious mind to take proper steps towards those type of visions. So you kind of got to get a little bit precise, you know, and that's again about declaring and being clear about what you want, you know. But I will say that it still gives, and so cut to, then I always wanted to meet Laird Hamilton, not because I think he's cute, I know a lot of girls do, but because of how riding giants affected my life. This was way before I even met Mark Sisson or knew that there was a chance. And I saw Laird in Malibu because he spends the summers here usually, and I saw him and I was like, and I missed my chance to say something, and I was like, oh, next time I see him. And then the perfect opportunity worked out. Mark was speaking at one of their XPT events, which is a very small group of people, like 20, 30 people, all at some like beautiful mansion in Malibu. And I said, hey, Mark, can I come to it? Because I really want to meet Laird. And he was like, yeah. And I showed up. And not only did I get to meet Laird, I literally, and I almost, seriously, I want to cry right now thinking about it. I got to literally express so much to him about what I just told you that I wouldn't have been able to had I caught him outside the cafe. I literally was tearing up telling him exactly all of this and how much that movie meant to me during, and I never thought like a movie about documentary on surfing with anything would have been like my saving grace. And the connection I had with him in that moment, we were off to the side. Nobody was clamoring to see him. I'm telling you, it came full circle. It came full circle. And it was just like, I can't, like, so anytime. Anyway, Riding Giants is a great, inspiring movie, and it also is just beautiful, and it can really just, it was like a healing thing for me. So it came full circle, and honestly, to this day, that is one of my best 180s of, like, visualization, and then actually meeting and getting the intimate moment to really tell him the story versus just like, oh, your movie saved my life at a time I was sick. No, I got in there with him, and he heard it, and he even like kind of teared up. He was just like, it was a great moment, and it was like the perfect one you could have wished for.
That is such an incredible story. And it was making me think about something I heard Dr. Joe say in preparation for this podcast. And he was talking about how, just like you were saying, our mind is this recording. It's a record player. That's how the mind works, is it's like it's gathered all this data and it's just helping you process with new information what it has already to work with. So when you put yourself in the future, it also has that to work with now. Right? Instead of only the past is like, well, I've never met Larry. He's just this guy on this documentary. Like, I don't know. But you actually put into your mind, basically, like, this has already happened, right? So then when it was available, it did. And I think that's so powerful. For me, visualization, I didn't know any of this stuff, like, when I was getting fit, but I did it. That's exactly what I did to get fit. It was like down to the T of, I could see exactly like my energy, my clothes, my feeling, my body, like in the gym, lifting weights, feeling strong. Like, I visualized the crap out of that, and it just happened, right? Because I was like, it was so real to me. Even when I was 30 pounds overweight, it felt like I was already that. Like, I was so living it in my mind it drove me to it like a magnet, you know? And so it's so powerful.
And that's it, is living, acting, not the acting as if, but pretending as if it already happened. You know, Justin Perry, UR Creators, has an amazing story. He was an assembly line worker with no education. He got into law of attraction and all this kind of stuff. And he would be talking to people and be like, oh man, I can't wait to buy that, you know, Lamborghini or whatever. And his friend would be like, whatever, dude, you're just, you know, pipe dreams. And he would be like, I'm rich. You know, or someone would be like, you can't afford that. He'd be like, I'm rich. I can afford it. And that sounds really crazy, right? A lot of us won't go to that crazy declaration, but he held on to that. Like, no, I am rich. Now he's living with 2 boats in a 8,000 square foot mansion in Florida. And, you know, so he showed everyone else, but he acted as, so it's like, if you want to be wealthy, well, what do wealthy people do? And that might be a move where you're really broke right now, but maybe you buy that non-generic can of peaches for 20 cents more, even though you wouldn't normally do that. But that it can be a small gesture. They don't have to be big. Yeah.
It's what it means to your subconscious. Your subconscious says, I don't worry about money because I have lots coming in. There's a YouTube audio that you can listen to from Earl Nightingale called The Strangest Secret.
Love him.
It is so powerful. And what he talks about in that audio is like, why is it that you take 100 men and they're, 23 years old and they're all driven and they're all lit up and they all want to make the most out of their life? Why is it that only 4 of them become wealthy? And he's like, well, truly because only 4 of them really believe that they will. Really, yes. They know that they will, and that's our beliefs drive our actions. Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about, he says that 95% of our actions are driven by the subconscious, yep. Right? So our subconscious mind is running the show. And if you're in your mind, you're like, I can't afford a 99-cent can of peaches. I have to get the 74-cent can of peaches. What is that reflecting into your subconscious mind? Scarcity. I don't have enough. I'm not saying be irresponsible with your money, but that's pretty, you can handle that. You guys got that, right?
I love, there's a couple of great examples. Dr. Joseph Murphy is an old school from the 60s guy who's a science of mind guy. He has a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind and lots of great books, and it's all the vein of what we're talking about. And I love him. And, okay, so one of the things, what was it? He had a good example about a guy with money. Or getting over fear. So you can apply the same technique to getting over fear. Like he had a guy who was afraid to get in the elevator every day and had to reprogram his, so it could be something like that. And so he took the steps up. And so what he started to do was, whether it's like you're afraid of high places, mountains or whatever, he imagined taking the elevator, but he blessed the elevator. He was like, I bless this elevator. What an amazing invention. Just would constantly point out all the positives to it until finally one day he got in the damn elevator. So you have to start somewhere. And it does start with really being, completely like you, again, it's reprogramming it from the mind into the one that's actually really doing all the work. Like you said, 95%.
Can I share a little story of something I'm doing right now actively to reprogram my subconscious? One thing that I've learned, at least for myself, is that when I have a dream, it's important to go into that dream, like the big, like it's so, dream so big people laugh at it, seems impossible. It's important to go to that space. But I find that if I stay in that space, it completely separates me from actively achieving that thing. It stays dream versus reality. So good. Right? So after I've achieved the dream and the vision, I then work actively to close the gap, to say like, oh no, I'm just doing that now. That's like actually something I'm planning, not dreaming of. And so one of my, big dreams over the last year has been to do retreats. I'm working on that actively. And something that honestly was brought to me through my place of higher power, whatever that is, the universe, guides, whatever, was to make my next home my retreat center. So that's what I'm working on actively right now. And so yesterday, I just went with a friend who's a realtor to go look at this property that fits the bill of like where I'm feeling guided to do this. And it was really interesting because I really, really would like, you guys can watch my journey. You guys can watch with me. Let's see what happens here. But I was really feeling compelled that it would be like, the new like modern looking homes that are really cool with all the cool lines and the woods and metals. That is absolutely what I was shown in my vision. But I found this property that didn't quite look like that, but it had 12 acres of land, which I really want for the retreats. For the whole purpose of the retreats is for people to be able to connect with nature. That's what I was guided to do. So I thought, gosh, it has place for horses. It has electric fencing. It has its own canyon. Like, I'm going to go check it out. Well, when I went to check it out, as I was driving up to it, I saw this right next door, as close as you could call neighbors, is this brand new modern home that is like exactly what I envisioned, right? And I was so grateful for that, because even though that's somebody else's house, but
it showed up for a reason.
It was showing me, it was like that, remember that, And so what I've been doing in my own visualization is like, when I am walking around my house, I imagine I'm in that house. When I'm getting into my garage, I imagine I'm in that garage. And I'm putting myself actively in my mind into that reality, so that now it becomes less of this big dream that I can't accomplish and more of this like, no, we're doing this, baby. Like, this is happening. This is coming. Like, get ready. So that, the reason I do that is because it makes me feel comfortable in the execution of making that dream a reality. It's like, oh, I feel comfortable in this. And that can go for...
You're owning that experience before it even happens, and you're embodying it, and that is what we know about the law of attraction. It's a feeling universe, not a logical one, and you are generating that.
Yeah. You're in that vibration. So when it comes to you, when those opportunities come, I find it makes it really easy to get rid of like unworthiness, or I don't know if I can, or it's like, no, I've been living in this reality for a minute. Like, of course, like, bring it, baby. And the body, something you said, I wanted to hit on this too. Like kind of like if it scares you kind of thing, right? Because this is a big thing when we're like reprogramming our subconscious and we want to get to the next level on things. It's like there's certain things that we're like, well, I can't do that. Why not? Like, why not? What, you want to skydive, or you want to bungee jump, or you want to freaking get a squirrel suit, or I don't know what it is for you, but like, why not you? Why other people? You know, why can other people do that? Let's talk fitness for a second. How come other people can be super fit but not you? Like, what is that? What's going on there? And that, for me, I really had that lesson. I tell this story all the time, and I feel so bad because I'm sure this guy is super nice, but there was this guy at the gym that he didn't seem like a very smart dude. I don't know how else to say it, but he was super fit. And because I had talked to him a few times, and you're
like, okay, yeah.
But he inspired me in such a mean, horrible way, because I was just like, if that guy can figure it out, like, I can figure it out.
Yeah, if that dummy can, damn it. No, but that's the truth. But here's the thing: everybody has like heard an interview of someone who's successful in a thing you want to be successful in, and you watch it, you go, how the fuck did this dumbass? And that is the perfect. That's not the place to start to go, this is unfair. It's start to go, oh no, I got this if he got this.
It's maybe not the most woke conscious thing, but it works. That happened to me too. Like when I was really starting to get a grip on the law of attraction, and I was just finding like Bob Proctor and Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, and I was going through my baby beginnings of like, wait, I can achieve whatever I want to achieve. And I was at that time happened to be hiking a lot, and this trail that you had to go through this like billionaire neighborhood to get to this trail, right? So there's all these like super incredible houses, like all in the cliffs. And I thought to myself, that's interesting, because up until now in my life, like I've always been like, well, that's for those people. Like those people can have that, right? What is that? What's going on with those people that other people can't achieve? And it's the mind. It's the programming of the mind. And this is what Earl Nightingale hits on a lot too, and The Strangest Secret. So I really recommend that audio. It's free on YouTube. Just listen to it while you're driving. It will get your brain just like churning on that. But there's this, I think that anything that we think that we can't believe is because of the belief pattern that's been going over and over and over, probably since childhood. Like for me, I was raised, we were definitely, I was poor. Like it wasn't even like middle class. We were poor. So there was this disconnect, right? From a very early age of like, I can't have things. Like we can't. Like,
other people get to have things.
Other people have, we are very limited here in our possibilities, right? And Dr. Bruce Lipton talks about how scientists have said that the first 7 years of our lives, our brains are designed to pick up all of the truths that surround us and formulate our belief system based off of that. So a lot of it is like with this reprogramming of the subconscious mind. I mean, we got to go way, way, way back to probably honestly things that we can't even remember. Maybe your dad spanked you like really bad when you were a little toddler and you can't even remember that, but somewhere deep inside you've got this big fear of disappointing men because that's scary to you. Like you might have to go deep, deep, deep into some subconscious rewiring. And for me, the greatest place to be able to do that is, I want to talk about neuroplasticity. So
yes.
So what I'm talking about here is our brains, as we get older, those neural pathways in our brain get set, right? And if we don't create an environment in our mind that can be neuroplastic, meaning we're just like little kids, we're able to make new connections. Like if I walk up to my son Kyle, or maybe Micah, who's 7 right now, and blew his mind with some new concept, he would be open to that. He would say, oh, huh. And he would formulate new opinions. But if I walked up to maybe a 70-year-old and said, hey, this is how it is, they might say, no, honey, let me tell you how it is because of this, right? That's what happens to us as we age. And
we're able to rewire and fire new neural pathways and then disconnect and rewire new ones. This is literally, you can show it on a brain scan. This is, watch some Joe Dispenza stuff on it. It's really fascinating. But it's true. And that's why it is important to keep, and this is one of the biggest things I think from all the subconscious mind teachers is you have to keep challenging your brain in some new ways. We talked about you could take a different route home, or you could read a new book. You could learn a new thing.
Right.
Google a thing. Oh, I wonder how the Mount Rushmore got that way. That's weird.
right.
Well, just Google it. Even that little discovery and rabbit hole you're going down is again, it's really firing up your brain that we need to keep this. This is the one reason my grandmother was like 98 when she died, but she was actually like hot as F up until like 94. No, I'm not kidding.
Shocker, Elle, shocker.
She was like, she's like really well known among all my friends because like she'd go dancing with us when she was 80s at the clubs and high heels and stuff. But her whole thing was like she constantly challenged her mind, man. And I won't do this myself because I'm not, this was not my passion, but she learned Chinese fluently, studied it for 30 years. She learned ancient Greek. Like she was constantly challenging her brain and her body. And man, she was sharp as a tack up until probably like the second she died. And I've always just looked at that and been like, you cannot let this thing go. We got to challenge it. I want to talk about. I got over a fear program, the subconscious mind, but I'll tell you what happened. So I never was interested in scuba diving. It was always very scary to me, and it based upon the fact that I was like, ooh, there's math involved. Hate math, don't like it, don't want anything to do with it, even to this day. And so I was like, I had this thing about me being bad at math. Really never just liked it. If I apply myself, I'm good at it. But you know what? I just never liked it. So I was afraid of it. So thinking about scuba diving, I was like, oh my God, being underwater and having all these things to think about and pressure and oh my God, there's no way. And so finally, someone offered me free scuba diving lessons many, many years ago. And I was like, shit. So I went and I was like, no. I'm going to go tackle this fear and see what happens. So what I learned is that, yes, I actually was glad I did it because I was like, no, I'm not a dummy. I see this, but what I actually still realized in the end is like, I still don't like it. Don't want to do it. But I'm glad that I went for it because it helped that part of my brain go, no, you are actually good at this and you are smart and you are capable in this arena. You just don't like the actual feeling of scuba diving. That's okay. But that kind of did something for me there. And I was so proud of myself and I felt very smart. And again, I'm a person who already thinks I'm smart, but not over there. Until to this day, I still am like, you do the math on that. Like I don't need to, it's not a part of my life. I care that I need to like become a mathematician, but I did do that and the exercise of it was really helpful to me. But still in the end, I was like, all right, still don't want to do it. That's okay too.
Yeah, that reminded me so much of a very powerful experience I had where I was at a mastermind and the speaker, she said, we hear all these tests, you do strength finders and you find out what your strengths and weaknesses are and all these things. And so we all have stories about what we're not good at, right? We all have that. I'm bad at this, right? All of us. And so she was like, okay, I want you to identify right now, like out of, I can't remember which test she was using, but it's like the people who are good at being like the visionaries, the people who are like the executors, the people who are like the organized and like, planners and stuff like that. And she's like, which one do you feel like you're the strongest in? And of course I'm like visionary, like I love that. I definitely identify with that suit because I literally see things. And then she's like, which one do you feel like your biggest weakness is? And mine was organization, right? And which is funny because when people come to my house, they're like, holy crap, girl, like you're so organized. And I'm like, oh no, I'm not, right? So there's this story in my head that I'm not organized. And she said, what is that? So that one that you think you're not good at, what does that cost you? And I thought,
yikes.
Whoa, because for me, it was like seeing how much I was limiting myself. And I mean, a lot of money for sure. Like giving away things because I'm like, well, I can't do this. Somebody else can do this. And we're kind of taught that in entrepreneurship, like just do the things you're good at and, pay somebody else to do the rest. But it's still important, like you're talking about with that story with math, to make the distinction. It doesn't mean that you're bad at it. It just means you prefer not to do that. That's okay. And that's a huge distinction because when we have this limiting belief of I suck at that, I can't. Well, now we've just like totally, handcuffed ourselves in an area where it's unnecessary. And we have this self-limiting story that's going along with it. So I love that. Yeah.
Because scuba diving is not something that maybe like actually that question she asked, like affecting my life in any way, but maybe not being organized is, because you're like, I keep losing everything. I think it costs me time and money. Like, so yeah, totally. In that case, you're like, all right, I might need to get on it. Another Dr. Joseph Murphy one, and this is just applicable to everybody, is like a woman back in the day in the war, because, all the stories are kind of old timey, and she knew there was going to be stuff rationed. So she went off and, like, this is kind of pandemic related too, I guess. She got like all the coffee she could buy in the neighborhood and, cut off. And then not too long after, she had burglars come into her home, and they didn't steal the coffee, but they stole everything else. And she was saying at church, she's like, I don't understand. Why did this happen to me when I was at church? Like, I never stole from everyone. And so that's true, right? Like, maybe she didn't steal from everyone, but here's the thing. Was she not in the consciousness of lack and fear when she began to hoard the supplies? A little bit incongruent there. It's this thing of lack and constantly going. Now, we all kind of did this recently when this pandemic. We're like, oh my God. And I'm not saying if someone steals from you, it's because you got a lack mentality. But there's always something to look at it. Because if you're the person that walks by the harbor and sees a multi-million-dollar boat and goes, well, good luck with that. Or a rich people's... Well, then guess what? You are so much farther away from that. They have to be aligned, right? You can't have an opinion and be declaring something about something and not have it be aligned with your subconscious. And that's when we don't get the things that we want. That's where, I guess, we're the work we do to try to clean up, or like you said, close the gap. So aside from like meditation and visualization and behaving as if you already have the thing, or behaving as that person.
Can I hit on the brain
again? Yeah.
Like creating an environment. Because for me, I always say that getting healthy was the gateway to personal awakening for me. And that I truly believe that is because I increased my neuroplasticity in my brain through regular exercise, getting good sleep, decreasing inflammation in my brain by eating healthy foods. Like I was eating almost purely clean foods all the time. I'm getting this rush of antioxidants. I'm getting a decrease in inflammation. I mean, I was on that McDonald's, Taco Bell, mac and cheese, white bread, grilled cheese life, like that, cookies with Crisco in them, like all of it. Like I lived that life as an adult, and getting off of all of that stuff and switching into basically paleo, very close to low carb dieting, I know that my brain neuroplasticity increased because I was exercising like crazy. I was hitting new intensity levels in training I never had before. I was sleeping a lot because I had read like, oh, that will help you build muscles. I was like, okay. I mean, I was, trying to basically hit that bodybuilder life. And I was also increasing my learning at the same time. I started getting fascinated by mind, the book that really opened things up for me was Mindset by Carol Dweck. And I was like, yes, like I had never felt so validated. I mean, I was like, she gets it. Yes, that is exactly how I see life. I think anybody who's like a growth mindset person who read that book by Carol Dweck was like, exactly. I mean, it was just like all the freaking like support I needed to go on my quest of personal optimization and living the life that I wanted to. But I think that creating that environment in your brain, you don't have pain receptors in your brain. You don't know if your brain is inflamed, and if you've never gone through like any sort of ketogenic dieting where you've at least like allowed your body to run out of incoming glucose and start metabolizing ketones, like the likelihood that you may have some impaired glucose metabolism in your brain, meaning you eat carbs or sugar in your body, your brain just doesn't really process them as well as it used to, which we've shown in research does happen as we age. Little by little, your brain function's going down, right? So as you start to change that through getting more oxygen, exercising, sleeping more, eating good foods, reducing that inflammation, allowing your brain to run off ketones sometimes, whoa, now we're in a state where, and I've watched this happen, I go to Metabolic Health Summit, which is basically a ketogenic diet conference, and I just sit back in awe of the people around me because I'm like, these are some really, really happy, well-adjusted people. Like this is a healthy group of people. Like everyone's smiling and abundance mindset and, oh my gosh, what can I do to support you? And it's like, it's so legitimately caring and happy and wonderful. And I just think this is what happens when people's brains get healthy. So huge push if you're wanting to manifest things in your life. Like you got to watch over your brain state. If you're eating donuts in the afternoon or some sort of sugary crap, and then you go into like brain fart mode where you can't operate, well, you're limiting your life. You're limiting your potential because of that choice that you made. I'm not saying there should be guilt in it. Do what you want, but just know that when you choose that, you are getting that result. You are limiting maybe 3 hours of your life that you could have been productive and had awesome things happen to brain fog and fatigue because you decided to just have chocolate cake for
and brain fog and fatigue does not go hand in hand with trying to reprogram your subconscious mind. No one's in a state of excitement or jazzed up about potentials when you're staring into space. I know this because when hypothyroidism used to cause brain fog for me, there's literally, you can't be happy. You're like in this like
apathy. Total apathy.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
How are you supposed to have the energy, the brain energy, to reprogram your subconscious mind? Yeah, right. You have no drive to do that. So brain health, is a huge part of health. We get so caught up in like, oh, how skinny do I look? How are my abs? That's an after effect. When you're feeding your body for optimal inner nutrition for your brain, your nervous system, everything to function correctly, you're going to look better. You are just going to look better. Your skin's going to look better. You're going to have better body composition. So I can't encourage.
And maybe it starts off with like, hey, the thing I can do right now is take some fish oil every day for my brain and eliminate one offensive thing or, whatever steps you can take. But yeah, I mean, this is why we're in this game with, look, my brain is so on fire because of the way that you and I eat and train. And and again, these stories people tell that are like my age and like, well, when you get to our age, I'm like, don't be lumping me into your shit story about your thing. But before we kind of wrap up here, let's talk a little bit more. So like having a specific vision is important. Meditation, self-talk, affirmations, even if you have to play them to you, those are biohacking it with binaural beats or some type of, again, guided thing.
Yep.
Watching the environment, right? Positive people, aesthetics, vibes. Maybe you need to switch up the mood.
Intaking.
Right, what you're intaking. And this is where, going into nature, getting out or switching it up is really important. Embracing the uncertainty. We've talked about this, being able to embrace the unknown. And then I would say, like, focusing on gratitude, of course, is one of them.
Yes.
And then adopting the empowering beliefs. You don't have to walk around and lie to yourself and go, I'm wealthy, I live in a mansion. But you could be like, I am in the process of gaining wealth. I'm in the process of attaining health. I am on my way to achieving a better body and a better whatever it is for you, because it's hard for people, and I think again it's whatever's believable for you, because that's going to imprint it better. So don't stand in front of the mirror or go, I have the perfect body, when the first thought after is, no, I don't, I look horrible. Okay, well then that's not the affirmation. The affirmation may be like, I am in the process of figuring out this out. It could be as base as that. I don't know, those are just some
beautiful.
Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, constant learning. I think learning is a huge part of it. Like you were talking about with your grandma, reducing stress. Yoga is amazing for reducing stress. Breathing, if you're going to meditate, just make that little intention. Even if you only, when you're starting, can do it for like 20 seconds before you're like, I don't feel like doing this anymore. 20 seconds of belly breaths, right? At the end of your workout, just lay down on the ground, just surrender and just breathe into your belly. All of those things can help you get into that state where you're now allowing things to come in. And I'll close my closing thoughts is, this is from Napoleon Hill, who was one of my greatest teachers. And he talks about how our mind is both a transmitter and a receiver, right? And so we're really good at transmitting. Like right now, you and I are transmitting like crazy. But if we don't offset this with some receiving of silence, and I think that's probably why you and I both love to go up into the mountains and be in nature and be in silence, because we are teaching, we are coaching, we are instructing, which is a cool form of learning too, but you really can't get that much new info, in my opinion, unless you have that opportunity where you're receiving and silent. Like, sure, do I read books? Absolutely. Do I intake other information? Absolutely. But the greatest strengths, the greatest value I feel that I bring to the table are the things that I was taught in silence. Right. So
I feel exactly the same way. And what you said about going out to nature, cannot tell you how many decisions, problems, things have been solved because I went on a hike. I hiked it out, and putting myself and panning the camera up in nature is what at the end of the hike made me either go, that's the decision, or no, I'm not going to say that to that person and have that conversation, or, whatever it is.
And like you said, Elle, real quick, like if anybody's listening, if you're going through something where we're all going through things where we have to make decisions, but I'm challenging you to do this. So one time I was instructed to go into the mountains during a really stressful time. It was actually right after paleo effects. I just felt overwhelmed. I'm like, I got 50 million things to do. I'm so behind from going to paleo effects. I'm like so stressed out right now. And my intuition was like, go in the mountains, go in the mountains, go in the mountains. I was like, no, I'm just trying to like distract myself. Finally, it just came up so many random times during the day. I was like, fine, I'll go for 30 minutes. I go out there, I drive out there. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm just going to sit here real quick in the mountains. And
yeah, like, damn it. I'm reluctant compliance.
Yeah, trying to streamline that shit. And I like, my intuition was like, go high, go high, go higher, go higher, go higher, go climb as high as you can. And I was just at the base of this little like rocky, mountain area. And I just climbed up. And I got to the top of that and I sat there and I saw the whole view. I could see the whole valley from right there. And it was just like you were saying, all of a sudden having that new perspective, I just started getting instructed. It was like, let go of this, change this, so-and-so can do that, let go. I mean, I was just releasing my mind and this stuff's just coming in like crazy. So if you're going through something and you need some perspective, I'm challenging you, please like find somewhere around you where you can get a little bit of view, a little bit of perspective, right? And just sit there and release your mind and see what happens. Because for me, that's always been a really, really powerful tool on finding out what's really going on in the subconscious and letting go of this like conscious tension sometimes that we get trapped in all day.
Yeah, and on that note, in closing, just enjoying the silence regardless. If you're always a person that has stimulation on, TV, music playing while you're working, knock it off. Cut it out. Yep. Sit in silence. Yep. Sit with your own thoughts. Stare at the wall. Think about it, or stare at a vista view. I'm all for the silence, and I honestly live in silence most of the time, other than like when I'm talking. But I love it because it's a sense of it allows my brain to gather its own things versus being kind of distracted. And I know a lot of people do it for that because they don't want to sit with their own thoughts. So so these are Dr. Joseph Murphy, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Byron Katie and Joe have really great meditations. You are creators. Justin Perry YouTube affirmations on wealth and health and all sorts of things. Candace Pert, psychosomatic wellness. I think it's the second track, which is the wellness. If you're really struggling with an awful situation, that might be the one you're going to go to. That's going to really help you feel those feelings of healing your body. So, and I just want to say, you had a great interview with Dr. Forsman on all of this, on holistic healing. And if people are new to this and want to really get in there and talk, change their brain with their body and their health, and that's a really great episode to start. I don't know what number episode that was. It just came out. But that's a really, I just watched it this morning and I think it was great. I mean, I love him. Obviously, he's my doctor. I've interviewed him like 100 times. But
yeah, guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, that's the doctor that Elle consulted with on her book, The Paleothyroid Solution. And I just interviewed him on my Inside Out Health podcast, which is the one where I interview health experts on my other podcast. And I believe it was episode 29, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, you'll see him, Dr. Gary Forsman.
Yeah, that's a really great discussion in Nephore of sort of all of the arenas of what it takes and why a functional or a different kind of doctor is the one you're going to want when your goal is the things we're talking about. So anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Elle.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week.